Actually, since we're still waiting for one, I'll get back in just a second.
That's quick. Yeah. It's nice living in a small city. Okay.
That was fast.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay.
I thought I had my computer in my bag, but I guess I could have done it.
Ready to go?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers, ready to go over there? All right. So let's call this meeting of the September 6, 2022 City Council meeting to come to order. Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Councilor McGill?
Here.
All right, we heard you.
Councilor Payne?
Here.
Councilor Pinkston?
Here.
Mayor Snook?
Here.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Here.
Okay, is there a motion to approve or to amend the agenda?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So this meeting will be divided into three main sections. First is a work session to hear and discuss presentations that do not require a council vote. Second, we will have a closed meeting, which will just be us. Then the city council business meeting, which will begin around 6:30. There is seating available here in council chambers for up to 23 pre-registered attendees and media. Others are able to join electronically by Zoom. I will note that Councilor McGill is joining us by Zoom today, and we can hear her, we can see her. She is legally permitted to do this by state law, and so we're glad that you can be with us in any way, fashion, or form. So we have three reports for us on this first docket. The first is our Airport Authority update with Melinda Crawford, CHO, Airport CEO, to present. Ms. Crawford?
Thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, member of council. It's always a pleasure to share the great things that are going on at your airport and our airport. And today I'm going to be presenting a PowerPoint presentation checking in with Joe as of September the 2022. I'm going to move forward through this presentation, and I basically, whenever I do a presentation, I get to share with individuals how we are formed, what type of operations we have, an organization that we have, so that members that may not, or individuals that may not know about the airport have a little bit better understanding after this presentation of how we operate here at the airport. I'm not sure if somebody will be moving through this presentation for me.
Mr. Dillahunt, do we know how we're handling this?
Yes, we've actually enabled all panelists to screen share, so you may share your screen.
Melinda, you can share your screen if you like, and that way you
Okay.
can control it.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
This technology is above my pay grade, so.
Jason? Hold on just a moment, please. I'm having to find it on my email where I sent it to the board.
We've got it as part of our packet.
Yep.
But that's not going to help people who are trying to watch
Right,
the
it should be on
Zoom.
the, needs to be on the screen.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We'll have it on the screen in just a moment. Jason, got an idea? Mhm. No, that's the presentation PowerPoint. Mr. Rogers, is there someone there that can pull it up and then I can just ask them to move forward with it?
Let's see. David Dillahunt,
Yes, I'm here. This will take just one moment.
all right.
Okay.
I'm so sorry for this inconvenience.
Not a problem. Every meeting brings its own set of challenges.
We understand.
It's been that way for 2.5 years.
Absolutely. Before you begin this presentation, I think I'll give a little bit of background about myself as your airport director.
Great.
Your airport was created in 1955. I wasn't here in 55, but I did come on board in 2013. And basically, I've had the privilege of operating or overseeing this airport since 2013. Prior to coming here, I was the airport director at the Pensacola International Airport, Pensacola, Florida. And I've been in the industry about 25 years. Just let me know when you're ready, sir.
Apologies for the delay. I'm attempting to actually retrieve it at the moment.
David, if you think you need some more time, we can go on with the next presentation and we can do, kind of switch order if it's not too much trouble, but let us know.
Aha, there we are. Okay.
Thank you so much.
We're in business.
And David, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And David, I'll just ask you to move the slide forward, okay? Again, who writes this story of this airport? As most of you are aware that we are operated by a board, an airport authority board, which is basically Mr. Rogers right now as the city manager, Mr. Jeff Richardson as the county administrator, and also one member from our joint airport commission. Currently, that member that sits on our board is Mr. Don Long. The city and the county both have ordinances that mirror each other about the appointment of joint airport commissioners. And basically, each time they appoint, you have 3 from the city and 3 from the county. Your current 3 members from the city are Mr. Roy Van Durham, Mr. Brian Johnson, and Mr. Matthew Murray. And these individuals provide, they provide advisory service, and they also review all items that are taken to the board before they go to the board, and they allow for public input into our items that we present to our board. Our Airport Authority Board is responsible for the policies and procedures and the oversight of the airport, and they hired myself as the CEO to operate the day-to-day operations of the airport. Would you advance it, please? In 2019 was our banner year. We actually served nearly 750,000 passengers, over 750,000 passengers. And going into FY20, we are on a fiscal year that ends on June 30th, just as the city and the county. But going into FY20, we were actually up about 4% year to date before the pandemic struck here at the airport. And we were well on our way to ending our year up to probably about 780,000, 790,000 total passengers. And that's passengers that are coming in and out of the airport. You'll see on this map that indicates about where do we get our passengers from. Most of our passengers do originate from the city and the county, but we do also pull from about 10 surrounding counties for passenger traffic. And would you advance the slide, please? But you know, as if you were to look at a hotel, you would understand that hotel can only grow by the number of beds it has. Well, an airport can only grow by the number of seats it has available to its passengers. And pre-pandemic, we were serving about 25 flights a day inbound and outbound, and we were serving about 2,300 to 2,500 passengers a day. When the pandemic hit in about April was our worst month, April of 2020, there were days that we only had about 22 outbound passengers. But we were still operating a great deal of flights. In June, the airlines adjusted their flight schedule of June of 20, and we went down to about 5 flights a day. They were focusing on their hub airports, which were Charlotte, Atlanta, and Dallas. Mid-pandemic, June 21, we saw growth. We were coming back. We had come back from 291 seats in June of 20 to about 777 seats a day outbound that were for flights that were also, and they had brought back Philadelphia and a small presence of Chicago flights were available. If you'll advance the slide, please. But in this slide sort of gives you a snapshot of where we were pre-pandemic to where we are about today. This slide indicates June 27th, 2022. Our seats and our flights fluctuate daily now, and they have been. Historically, we have more flights on a Monday than we would on a Tuesday. And so on an average day right now, you'll probably see between 12 and 15 flights a day. So we haven't recovered completely pre-pandemic, but we are recovering, and we're seeing more leisure market come through, more leisure traffic come through our airport now than we had in the past. Would you advance the slide, please? This is a snapshot that just shows you where we were with total passengers in 2018, 19, 20, and 21, 22. The dark bluish black line, which is 2020, shows you the story that we were well above our 19 numbers, and then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out in April of 2020. We started recovering in May of 2020, and we've gradually been recovering every month since then. Would you advance it, please? While our flights have been fluctuating, our operations also began to fluctuate. And when we were in the FY 2021 budgets, we realized that we were going to have to do something very drastic in order to make sure that we were financially viable at the airport. And again, I will remind everyone that while we carry the name Charlottesville Albemarle Airport, we do not use local tax dollars. We're not a burden on the local tax system. All of the money that it takes to operate this airport is generated at this airport, and with the exception of some of the federal grants that we've received. Typically, before the pandemic, our federal grants were just for capital projects. But during the pandemic, as all airports across the country, we were able to get funding from the CARES initiative, from the CARES Act. And so we've been very fortunate in having that funding coming to us from federal sources. In 2021, we actually did some very drastic budget maneuvers. What we looked at is we would not fill any non-essential or non-absolute required position if it became vacant. We made the decision that we were going to try to keep all of our employees employed here at the Airport Authority, and that we would go through and examine each and every expense, and expenses that weren't absolutely necessary were not moved forward. The biggest hit for our budget in 2021, 2022 was that we did not have a lot of money in our budget for promotions, marketing, and things of that nature. Then when you move into the 2023 budget, you see that it has increased. Before the pandemic, our budget was about $8,600,000, $8,700,000 a year. And then this year, it's about $9,386,000. And the biggest change in there is that we're fully funding our advertising, our airline incentive program, and also some repairs to our parking lot, which we cannot get any federal or state funding to assist with those projects. We have to fund those internally. Would you advance the slide, please? When you look at the budget and you'll say, okay, what generates that budget? There's about 50 full-time, part-time employees here at the airport, but there's a lot of other people that work at the airport. We have a restaurant, food and beverage concessionaire. We also have what we call a fixed-base operator, which is basically the service provider to the general aviation, which are private-owned aircraft. That's Signature Flight Support. But there are other individual companies that are out here, the rental car companies, the airlines, and then also we have some general aviation companies that are out here, Clear Sky, Monticello Flying Club, Charlottesville Flight Center, and the Meridian Air Group. These individuals all pay to operate at this airport. Would you move the slide forward, please? The airport serves as the front door to your community and has served as the front door to your community since 1955. But it is also an economic driver for your community. The Virginia Department of Aviation, which is a very good partner of the airport, they actually did studies in 2014 and 2017 that talked about what was the regional impact to our airport. 2017 studies showed that there was 2,239 jobs associated with the airport, about $110 million in wages annually, and about $310 million overall economic activity at your airport. I believe the Virginia Department of Aviation did not do a study during the pandemic, basically because they realized that the numbers would be skewed so badly. I think that they've been indicating that we're working on an update to this economic impact, and when it is, we'll share it with our board members, who will certainly probably share it with their members of council and their members of the Board of Supervisors. Could you advance it, please? You know, one of the biggest things that your airport does is that not only do we plan and take care of our passengers today, but we have to plan and take care of our passengers of the future. When the pandemic hit, we were having about 11 aircraft that were parking on our ramp every night in order to go out early in the morning to actually join up with the hubs at our other airports: Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. We had no more room to accept overnight aircraft. So in about 2018, we started working, 2017-18 timeframe, we started working on an air carrier apron expansion. That's the concrete pavement in the back of our terminal that our aircraft park on, our commercial aircraft park on. We actually were able to expand our apron to accommodate 4 more aircraft, and it did cost about $9.7 million to do that, mainly due to the change in the topography around the airport. There's very little flat land here. We received most of that funding for that project, that $9.7 million, from the FAA, but we were also able to use our Virginia Department of Aviation funding too. One of the things that came about with that project was that we had to relocate Taxiway Echo. A taxiway is the pavement that allows the aircraft to move from the ramp to the runway. And in this case, when we built the expanded apron, it required us to relocate the taxiway because the FAA does not allow unfettered access to the taxiway from the ramp to the runway. It requires now that the aircraft would have to leave the ramp, go to taxiway Alpha, and then go to taxiway Echo. That was done at a cost of about $2.6 million, and that was funded during the CARES and the recovery federal dollars. And 100% of that project was funded, $2.6 million, through the FAA. Could you advance the slide? But some of the biggest projects that we have are the ones that are ongoing now. This is a rendering of what your parking lot will look like. We currently have 1 elevator and 2 sets of stairs at the center location of this parking lot. It's called the long-term lot. It's directly in front of the terminal. And we have 2 sets of stairs, 1 at the north and 1 at the south. But that elevator had reached the end of its useful life. And also, because it was only 1 elevator and there was no redundancy, we had to put in a 2 elevator system in order to be able to locate handicap parking in that long-term lot. Would you advance the slide, please? This is a very big project. These are pictures that shows the progression of that project. We had to come in and portion off a part of our long-term lot and build 2 elevator systems with covered walkways that will take you from the long-term lot to the canopy in front of the terminal. Would you advance the slide? This is later versions as of July. It's actually progressed a little bit more since then. We're hopeful that this project will be completed in about October-November timeframe. It was funded at a cost of about $4.7 million, and FAA funding and also the airport's own discretionary funds were used for this project. Will you advance it, please? One of the hardest projects we've had to do, this terminal building has great bones. It was built in 1991, opened in 1991, but there were 2 escalators, 2 sets of escalators that went up to the Gate 5 area. That first picture on the left shows you how when you come out of TSA screening and you look to your right, you would see that set of escalators and also a set of stairs. The other set is on the other side of Gate 5 as you go down to the ramp. So 60% of our passengers with American Airlines who represent 60% of our passengers, were going up those escalators, upstairs, and then they would go down the other set of escalators. Well, as these escalators aged, we weren't able to get equipment to fix them when they malfunctioned. And so it became a true burden with our maintenance. We ended up putting up a construction wall, but when we put up the construction wall, the next slide will show you exactly what it looks like behind that wall. We had to come in and completely take out that escalator system. Both sets of it going up, and then the two sets going, the set going out to the ramp. It was a $2 million project just for the equipment of the escalator. But the problem that we ran into is, where do you put 60% of your passengers when you're basically shutting down their ingress and egress to that area? So we worked with the airlines, and our staff worked very diligently to figure out a plan. And what the solution ended up being was that we bought a modular building with the help of the Virginia Department of Aviation. We retrofitted the building to allow for handicap access to and ingress and egress from the building, IT for the building, also HVAC and such as that. That building is located directly behind the restaurant and the bar area of our terminal. And all of the American airline passengers are going through that modular gate system that we have, while our contractor, Cambridge Construction Company, is working behind the scenes to get this area completed. But we're not taking, we're not going to let this opportunity slip. If there are no passengers up there at Gate 5, we took the opportunity now to do some work that needed to be done in that area. We painted the entire gate area. We've worked on the carpet. We're redoing the terrazzo. We've also worked on renovating the observation deck and looking at just making sure that any improvements that we can make while we're closed down in that area are performed, so that when we open back up in the September timeframe, that our passengers are welcomed by a new, clean, modernized airport, especially in that section at Gate 5. Would you please advance it? There's a couple of other ongoing projects. One of them is a terminal area plan. When we had reached the 750,000 passengers in 2019, we were pretty much at maximum capacity in this terminal building. And so we started working with a engineering firm, Parrish & Partners, to develop a terminal area plan that help us explain how we should expand our building, also how we should look at planning for parking, rental cars, and other projects of that nature. We're just about to wrap up that project. All indications are that the terminal area plan for future development expansion will go to the north, where that green dot is located on this picture. When we get to that project, the terminal expansion project, we're going to be looking at trying to use the bipartisan infrastructure funding that recently was released by Congress. And we're also going to be looking at our our entitlements from the FAA and our money that we receive from the Virginia Department of Aviation to fund this project. One of the things that we're looking at as a sustainability project is to redo all of our taxiway and runway lights and all of our signage on our airfield. That's an LED upgrade, and it's going to be about $4.4 million, and it's being funded primarily by the FAA and the Virginia Department of Aviation, 90% coming from the FAA. The main future project that we have that will be needed when our numbers return is a parking expansion project, and we've been working and looking at this type project for quite a while. You'll see the blue dot, which is on our Loop Road, which is adjacent to our long-term lot. We're looking at a design for a multi-level parking structure in that area. Parking is one of the only type projects that the FAA and the Virginia Department of Aviation will not help us fund, We'll be working with our rental car companies to help fund a portion of that project because we plan on moving the rental cars into one of the levels of that parking structure eventually. But also we'll be looking at debt financing. And this timing of this project works out very well for the airport. I mentioned a while ago that our terminal opened in 91. And then also we've had parking projects since then that we've had to use debt financing through the Virginia Resource Authority. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at going back out for debt financing, but most of our existing debt or other debt has been retired. And then there's also a general aviation improvements. You know, we have a lot of activity with private owned aircraft, corporate aircraft and things of that nature. And so we'll be doing some improvements to that area, working in conjunction with Signature Flight Support to help fund those improvements. But the Virginia Department of Aviation will also be helping us do that. Next slide, please. This is my favorite slide. This picture actually is what our ramp looked like before the pandemic. Every night on our ramp, you would see about 11 aircraft. But the saying for this picture, attached to this picture, really tells a story. You can go a mile of highway and take you a mile, but a mile of runway will take you anywhere you want to go in the world. And that basically is my presentation, and I stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Councilors have any questions?
Yeah, when was the last update done of the airport master plan?
The airport master plan was done, the last update was done in 2004. When we went into a runway expansion in 2008, a lot of work was done on that that runway extension. There was environmental assessments and environmental impact studies done. There was a lot of work done as far as looking at our future development on the airfield. When we came into looking at what we should be doing with the terminal, that's why we narrowed it down to a terminal area update. And when we move back in to update our entire master plan, that terminal area update will be incorporated in the update.
Okay.
I believe that our plans to update it, it would be very difficult to update right now because our numbers are so skewed because of the pandemic. So it's probably going to be at least 2 to 3 years before you start looking at another master plan update.
So maybe if you can help inform me and the public, because I get a lot of questions on this, is that the daily flights to Chicago, they were very, very successful, but apparently United or whoever, they just, I guess a shortage of pilots or whatever, they just discontinued that, and that was very fruitful for the airport. I may be completely wrong, but maybe you can let me know.
Sir, you're not completely wrong. That was a very beneficial flight. Before the pandemic, we had 2 airlines actually serving the Chicago market, which is pretty unusual for an airport of our size. We had American Airlines and we also had a United Airlines. Both of those airlines, when they suffered greatly during the pandemic, and there were funding that was provided to them to keep them operational. Again, I indicated that during April of 20, there were 22 passengers going through our airport that day. That was the way the picture of most airports across the nation. And they took the opportunity to look and decide where did they want to focus their service, and they wanted to focus their service back through their hubs. There's also the issue that this airport has been primarily a business market. We've had some leisure market associated with the universities and things of that nature, but mostly our air service was business. When the pandemic when portions of the country started to recover from the pandemic and people wanted to get out and travel, they were traveling to areas that were located around the coast, near water, near the beaches, or out around Hawaii, Florida, along the coast of the eastern coast. But they were also traveling to Montana, Colorado, and Wyoming, which is basically in order to be able to enjoy the great outdoors for a while. So a lot of the airlines started focusing their travel on making sure they could meet the demands of those areas. And so they shifted. And then on top of that came the pilot shortage. And so that truly caused them to go back and look. We've been in communications with our airlines consistently through this whole effort. And they've talked about it, and they understand that this market is a very good market. Before the pandemic, this airport had grown over 100% in passenger traffic in about 8 to 9 years before the pandemic. We were a fast-growing market, one of the fastest smaller airports growing in the country. But the pandemic has caused all of the businesses to look at what they're trying to provide, and they're also looking at where can they make the most money with their assets. And their assets, their major assets, is their aircraft.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question. I remember hearing a while ago at this point, but sort of just brainstorming about the possibility of the airport hosting some sort of small solar facility that could be part of a community solar program potentially. Is that an idea that went anywhere? And if not, is that an idea that the airport authority would ever explore implementing?
Yes, sir. It is an idea that we would explore. We've talked to, we're trying to move to projects that are for sustainability, and solar would certainly be one of those. As we build any expansion to the terminal or parking deck, we'll be looking at the opportunity for solar on those structures. And we were in discussions, an organization had come to us about a solar array on the airport, but because the master plan had not been updated, it was very difficult to move forward with that because we weren't sure if we would put that in a location that might future impact the development of this airport. So the timing was not right for that. So if and when we're able to go back out for a solar array, we'll be going out through competitive negotiations so that we would put it out for a bid and organizations would be allowed to come in. The organization had made the proposal to us, was working with a local group, and it was a very good proposal, but we just felt that at this time it was not beneficial for the airport because it might hamper our future development.
So in other words, in terms of process, if that were to ever move forward, you would argue you need to update your master plan first, which was last updated in 2004. Is there any rough timeline of when that would potentially happen, even if it's just like an estimate?
I believe you'll be seeing your master plan updated within the 5-year timeframe. But again, we've made a commitment that if we expand our buildings or if we look at any other opportunities, that we will explore solar during those construction projects.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, your numbers indicate that you lost something like $3.5 million over the last couple of years and looking to lose another $1 million this year. Are there reserves? Is this coming out of some federal pot of money? How are you coping with that?
We had some reserves, sir, but most of this funds are coming through the federal CARES, the Coronavirus Relief Act, and some other federal recovery laws. Mm-hmm. We've had, and I'm sorry, I use acronyms. It's CARES, CRIS, and Recovery. So we've had 3 opportunities. Airports across the country have been given funding from the federal government during those 3 relief bills.
We know the CARES Act well. Mm-hmm. That's an acronym we're familiar with. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes. Fire away, Sina.
Just curious, have you applied for the airport terminal program grant?
We did.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, we weren't successful this time, but we're going to continue to do it because our building was built in 91. So there are some things that we can use to improve sustainability, ADA access, and a lot of other environmental issues that we can address. Improvements.
And has the airport considered doing a shuttle service at any point?
Shuttle service to where, ma'am?
I was thinking a shuttle service to a centralized hub with the CAT system or the UVA system.
The airport itself is not, the money we earn on the airport stays on the airport. We would go out for a third-party organization to assist us with that. And we've had that in the past. We've had a single provider for cabs. We also right now currently have a lot of shuttles coming in from the hotels area. We've had conversation with CAT. We've had conversations with our planning organizations.
I think it would, whenever we can start thinking on these more regional spokes so that we
Yeah.
reduce the actual need for individual cars to be stored at an airport, I think that's a great movement, especially with climate.
I understand your thought process, but I would also ask you, if you looked at that budget, 50% of our budget, when in ordinary times, when pandemic is not here, 50% of our budget comes from parking.
Right.
And that helps us to be self-sufficient, financially self-sufficient. So we've worked very diligently with organizations allowing shuttles to come on. And if it's a private company, we've also worked with them and we've allowed them to even advertise in our airport to promote their services.
Do we charge for advertising in the airport?
Anybody that uses the airport has to pay to use the airport.
Good. Thank you. That's all. And I appreciate your comments on how you're looking at more sustainable plans.
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report.
Thank you very much.
Oh, the last question, I'm sorry.
Up.
Ms.
Okay.
Crawford, I had sent an email.
Yes, you did.
Who received that?
I did, and I had
Good.
some set in on your conference call. It was an environmental conference call, and our chief of public safety set in on it for me.
Excellent. I know it was a last minute thing and I just wanted to, if you were able to, just wanted to give you that info.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is a report from the Youth Jedi and Climate Justice Ambassadors. And I gather we have some here present. I will tell folks, I had the occasion, probably 6 weeks or so ago to speak with the Youth Jedi team, their Climate Justice Ambassadors, and this is a group, I assume you will explain yourselves for the benefit of the audience, but this is a group that I was very impressed with in terms of the insight in their questions, and I'm glad that they are energetically involved in trying to work through some of these issues for us. So who's going to speak? What's the plan here? I hope someone will start off by explaining yourselves.
Hello. You guys can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Tamana Kaidari. I'm in 8th grade at Buford Middle School, and I am a part of the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Youth Ambassadors Program, also known as JEDI Youth Ambassadors. This came out of a partnership with Piedmont Housing Alliance and Community Climate Collaborative to promote youth advocacy around climate and social justice issues. If you guys don't mind, we have paper copies of surveys that we had Charlottesville residents to fill out if you guys would like the papers.
Sure. Happy to see whatever you got.
How should I? Yes, just give it to.
If you give them all to me, I can pass them down.
So this is a multi-page thing. So you get 2 pages. All right, do you have more copies?
That's right. We can share, saving the environment. There you go.
No, I'm gonna keep it to myself.
For the past few weeks, we have been collecting data from Charlottesville residents about how the public transport issues have impacted most people in our community. We, Jedi Youth Ambassadors, have spoken with Charlottesville residents during the Back to School Bash on the downtown mall in the pavilion, at Friendship Court, and also at our school communities. In total, there were 50 responses, with the vast majority of them being Charlottesville residents. 40% of identified as African American and 50% were 18 years old or younger. To our surprise, more than 30% of respondents say that they never ride CAT buses even though they are city residents. Most were under 18 and some have 2 or few vehicles in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Azar Zahid, and as you guys heard, we're the Jedi Youth Ambassadors, and I'm originally from Afghanistan, and currently I'm in 11th grade at Charlottesville High School as a junior. As we surveyed people around the city and gathered info from them, we learned that half of the respondents don't use public transportation, either because a stop is not close to them or that the system is generally confusing to them. Number one was that the bus stops, as it wasn't close to them, we learned that they struggle to get their daily life, go to work, go to stores, school, and other places easily. So this was caused due to the simple but long-term issue caused by the public transportation. For example, if a bus wasn't at a particular place of interest that many people would like to go, like as the respondent said, like stores, the supermarket, work, church, and currently schools. As you all might know, that the transportation for school systems is not looking that great, as they have to, as many of them would have to walk now, since the walking zone is expanded, and parents during the same time would ride cars, making it dangerous for students to ride to walk especially, and other than having to walk, carpool, or use the city buses, which majorly impact a lot of their educational time, to walking from school and going to home. This takes time for students for their, number one, for their safety, and number two, for their whole education. The next thing was that timing for those specific buses around the city and their stops. Generally, the time efficiency was one of the problems that many of the residents here faced, since they didn't know, due to their unknown and generally confusing times of arrival of buses with old and misdated charts, so they couldn't set a proper, accurate, and more constant timing for those places to go to, since they would have to worry of getting either earlier or later and wasting unnecessary time in trying to get from location A and B, which for many of them could be done walking and more dangerously, but taking more walking time to get to that location, as they didn't have any other option, since the bus system was usually too much or just unable to get there at all. And also, due to that same issue, 70% of the respondents, they used car, or they carpool, walk, or use bicycles and other methods of transportation to get from places to places. The use of online app, we learned that it was a big step towards public transportation, but it was executed in a manner that didn't serve the community well enough for them to actually adapt to it. They didn't have any way of first of all finding the app, or either I didn't know of the app either until like a couple of months ago, that they couldn't use that app, which also wasn't greatly built, and it wasn't, just like the timing charts, accurate, so that many residents, even who had the app, couldn't find the accurate time of buses coming, so they could go from location A to B. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all hear me good?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Hello. My name is Logan Martin. I'm a Jedi Youth Ambassador. I'm in 11th grade at CHS. My passion is game development. I like tea. And I'm learning 2 languages, Chinese and Nepali. We, the Jedi Youth Ambassadors, have gone into the community, and although we are young, we should be taken seriously. I will be sharing a more personal take on things rather than statistics and things like that. I've used the bus many times over the years. I'm 16. I'm not ancient or decades old. But whether it be by myself nowadays or with my family when I was younger, I'd use the buses, the CAT buses specifically. I can't remember much about when I was younger, but I remember how long it took to get from point A to point B. Same now, sadly. Going grocery shopping, back to school shopping, just going out in general. It would be a whole day trip to do really anything. I remember standing at the now run-down Fashion Square Mall with my mom and my family. My mom must have gone through a lot in that time. The heat, 2 kids in a stroller, 2 kids on foot, carrying groceries, waiting for a bus, trying to use the app that like barely seems to work at all. I could go on, but we don't got all day. So yeah. We need an app that makes sense. Take language into account, age, etc. UX or user experience should be at the forefront. It took me a while to even find the app, let alone use it effectively. Maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe I'm slow. But I found that others are having the same issues as me. We need a standard bus stop in all locations. Nobody wants to get rained on while waiting on the bus. Not everyone has a cell phone. There are little pieces of paper with a schedule on some bus stops, and those are very outdated, like 2019 schedule. So those really need to be updated for people who don't have phones. Speaking of waiting, we need shorter wait times. Who's going to use the buses to get to work if it's not reliable? That was a common complaint we got from our responses. What about the workers to provide all this? There's a massive issue, the worker shortage. What's going on there? Why are we having a worker shortage? And what about climate change? Can we switch to electric buses? Slowing it down, not asking tons of theoretical questions. I think we can all agree that Charlottesville is a steadily growing city. I'm going to loosely quote the mayor on this. A town with city issues. That's what he told us. As the city grows, we need to ensure Charlottesville residents can actually utilize the opportunities their city provides. If you take anything away from this, things need to change, and people need to know that there are things that are changing and be included in that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who would like to speak in connection with this? Got a bunch of adults here. You must be proud of your efforts.
Do you guys have questions?
Yeah, if everyone's finished speaking, the young lady that spoke first, I'm sorry, what was your name again? Tamana?
Yes.
So, I have a question for you. So, if you had a magic wand and you could, address, and by the way, from what I'm hearing, what I've heard is kind of what I'm hearing just generally from the public as they speak to me. So kind of a gut check. I think that you all have done a fabulous job. So kudos to you all for your work.
Thank you.
But for my question, if you had a magic wand and that wand included some money, what would be the one issue that you would address based on what you have learned this summer?
I feel like our main point was transportation, but in all conclusion, just hearing everyone out, listening to what people has to say is a really big thing, because there's a lot of things that's going on and people's voices aren't heard, and we are trying to get that out right now.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, council?
Yeah, just one question. I would echo what Vice Mayor Wade said. Your research really echoes a lot of what we continue to hear about what we need to change in the transportation system. I'm curious, one of the things you brought up that we hear, but we haven't heard as much that I think is really important is the app. I've tried to search for it myself. I'm still not sure what words you need to type in to get to it. But
And I should tell you, 3 years ago, when he ran for city council, he was complaining about the app back then.
So I've got a sense of like its limitations, but when you were talking to people and looking at it, like what are some of the things you saw that you feel would need to be changed to make it more usable, if that's something that came up?
I'd say there's a big language barrier. That's one of them. More languages should be supported. I'd say app stores themselves, and like the app itself wasn't called like Charlottesville City Transit or something. It's called Spot, which it took a bit. There's been multiple apps from my understanding over the years. Them updating it or something. There's also a website. So I had to go through the grapevine on the internet just to be able to find it. My mom has an app, but it's completely different from the one I have, which was pretty interesting to find that out. Another age, older people had a very hard time understanding the app compared to younger people, and just the user experience in general isn't that great. There's like a little messages tab at the bottom right corner, but it seems that it's not updated in a timely manner. One time the bus was down and I didn't know that, and I was trying to get to UVA for a summer camp, and I wasn't told on the app itself that that bus was down, and so I manually walked to the station itself to find that information out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just one other question. You made a lot of specific policy recommendations to us. Do you have any plans to keep following us? And if we haven't implemented them, let us know, hey, you know you need to do this. When are you going to do it?
I mean, hopefully, yes. There's a lot of things going on in other people's lives. My life, school is a thing. So, I mean, any opportunity we have, when we're available, we hope to. So, yeah.
Sometimes we need a little reminding. But
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no comment or question, but just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done. This is very informative. Appreciate your time and your effort.
Now, the one thing I wanted to add, I know that you all have been working with folks from Piedmont Housing Alliance and the Climate Collaborative. I see Susan over there. Are those the folks primarily who have been helping you get this thing going?
Yeah. I'd say Piedmont Housing Alliance, C3. There's also Cultivate Seville. We've worked with them. Our neighborhood, the Back to School Bash thing. Just a lot of people in general that we've been trying to collaborate with and get feedback. And yeah.
Okay. One thing I would add to what Councilor Payne mentioned is that there are always opportunities for folks who want to get involved in political campaigns. There will be another political campaign for City Council next year, and 3 seats will be up. And one of the issues that we talked a lot about 3 years ago was climate change, and I in particular talked a lot about transit. So those issues will continue to be important, and I would encourage you to get involved when you can. Councilor McGill has a question or a comment.
2 things real quick. I would love it if y'all would be able to put down in writing your policy recommendations and your findings, even if it's in a short blurb. It's very helpful to have that in a more concrete format. And the second thing, I would really like to applaud you all for coming up here and speaking. I personally have a hard time with public speaking. I know how nerve-wracking it can be, and I really appreciate you coming forward and speaking in front of council like this. It means a lot to us, and we are listening.
And I will note that when I spoke to them a few weeks ago, they said, well, how can we make sure that people are listening to us? And I said, well, one way is to come to city council meetings at 4 o'clock on the first and third weeks of the year, or weeks of the month, and come and speak to us. And about 2 weeks later, I got this call, this email from somebody saying, we want to come. And so here you are, and we appreciate you coming. We appreciate your thoughts. Susan, did you have something you want to say?
I just want to, sorry, I put my phone. Just to sort of echo what the kids have said, I just want to put it back to you all as well, not just say you come to us and bring us things, but these are kids who have been hustling. They have showed up at events. They took surveys of their peers during lunch at school. These are kids you should be coming to get feedback. You should be reaching out to this community because they understand the issues. They are talking to their neighbors, they're talking to their peers, and I just want to encourage you as leaders of the city to see them as the future leaders that they are. And it goes both ways. So that's my only comment, but thank you so much for letting the kids come to speak today.
Any other comments from?
I was just going to say thank you. I've been working with these kids for weeks, and I know they put a lot of work into these presentations, and I'm so proud of them. And
Tell us who you are, please.
So well. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tori Carter Johnston. I'm the Jedi manager at Piedmont Housing Alliance. So I got to spend a lot of time with these kids. I watched them serve. They made the survey that y'all see, and they made everything. So I really appreciate you guys also honoring and respecting their bravery and their time, because I know you guys are busy people, but I know they were also maybe a little nervous and also excited. So I'm just glad that they got good feedback and you guys appreciate it. And Mayor Snook, I know I emailed you about them coming, so I can definitely email you all of their data and stuff like that.
That's great. Thank you.
But yes.
I'll pass it along.
And this is our first time doing it this summer, so I know even today they were like, should we go back to city council in a year and update them on the survey and stuff like that? And Azar is interested in the youth council, so this is our first summer doing this, but you're going to be seeing a lot more of them.
Great.
Just so you know.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Appreciate
Thank
y'all coming. Yes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next item on our agenda is a report on the jail, an update on the regional jail. Colonel Coomer, is he? There we go.
Hey, Mayor.
Go for it.
I'll be sharing my screen here. How's everyone doing tonight?
Great.
Great.
This is David Dillahunt. Our Zoom, for some reason, keeps ceasing in the distribution room here, so I keep having to restart it, but it keeps stopping on its own. So we have lost everyone momentarily, and I'll try to bring them back.
Yeah, I'm having sort of an issue on mine, too. I'm getting told the host has another meeting in progress.
I think the Zoom crashed and I have to start a new one. I saw it like go down.
Yeah.
Well, I will try to leave it again. Okay. Got you back, Colonel Coomer?
I'm here. Is it just me or is everyone getting kicked off?
We're all having issues.
4 times now.
Okay, all right, thought it might be me. Okay. Mayor, if we're ready, let me know.
Go ahead.
Back. All right.
All yours.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen here. Can everyone see? Should say Almost Charlottesville Regional Jail Renovation and Expansion.
Yes.
Colonel
Okay.
Coomer, if you would please, if you could click the down arrow next to display settings on your terminal and swap the displays.
All right. How's
Thank you.
that?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Okay. Okay. I presented the same presentation back in the spring to City Council, so this is kind of a refresher for you to kind of get us in line with the resolution. It's, I believe, on the 6:30 agenda, and I'll discuss that in just a minute. As some of you know, we are looking to do a renovation and expansion of the facility. The current facility opened in 1975. It's almost 50 years old. The current rated capacity is 329, and I will make it clear that at no time during the renovation or expansion will that capacity increase. We are not going to add one additional bed to the expansion and renovation. The average daily population has been as high as 600 over the years. The population as of this minute, there are 270 people inside of the jail, and 40 people are currently on home electronic incarceration. This is the lowest population inside of the jail in the over quarter century that I've been working here. We currently have 161 authorized staffing, 161 employees. We currently have 127 employees on staff. The renovation expansion area is approximately 50,000 square feet. But it will be contained within the footprint of the original jail, which is 152,000 square feet. How did we get here? We didn't just decide, 2 years ago we wanted to expand and renovate the jail. In September of 2019, I went to the board with some major issues that were being presented at the time. The total cost of those two projects was $1.25 million. At that time, the board said, well, hey, before we start investing all this money into the jail to renovate some of these issues that we have, let's do a facility condition assessment. We did that, came back. There were a lot more issues that needed to be addressed at that time. It was then decided, well, if we're going to go this far, let's look at the overall needs of the facility. Are we meeting the community's needs, staffing needs, inmate needs, and not just the infrastructure? We hired Mosley Architects to perform a community-based corrections plan study. We held several public engagements to get feedback from the community and stakeholders. Mosley presented the community-based corrections plan to the board at the December 2021 meeting. The community-based corrections plan does two things. One, it looks at how many beds will you need 15 years from now? And the other part is, what does the facility need to meet its current needs and obligations to its employees, its staff, and current trends in corrections? So we presented at the board meeting in December. The board indicated at that time that if this was something we were going to do, that we would seek 25% reimbursement from the state for all eligible renovation costs. And that's where we are now in the process. And that's what the resolution will be about at 6:30. So the board adopted a resolution directing Mosley to submit the community-based corrections plan to the Department of Corrections as part of the process. The CBCP was submitted on December 31st, 2021. As I mentioned earlier, there was an FCA, a facility condition assessment. That's where you look at the infrastructure, your electrical, your plumbing, your HVAC, the windows, the roof, all that stuff. It indicated there are several major systems that need to be replaced or repaired over the next several years. But the CBCP is what really kind of brought this whole renovation and expansion home. This comes in and looks, one, do we need more beds to meet the future needs? The answer to that is no. So we will not be adding any beds whatsoever to this facility. And that is unique when a CBCP is done. It is rare that you come into a jail and you look 15 years in the future that you don't need to add new beds. We're not adding new beds because of the work with the local prosecutors, our local courts, our defense council, Region 10, Offender Restoration, Probation, Parole. All of our community partners are doing a fantastic job to divert all those individuals who can safely and effectively be served in the community rather than placed in jail. That is one of the things that's keeping our population low. The community-based corrections plan study findings, additional toilets and showers to comply with ADA and new building codes. We are grandfathered in. If this were a new facility built the way it is today, it would not meet a lot of the building codes, but because it is almost 50 years old, a lot of these things are grandfathered in. But we still need, for our inmates' sake, for our staff, we still need to comply with ADA and new building codes. Redesign inmate housing areas to create an environment that encourages mental and physical well-being, a dedicated mental health and segregation unit that is conducive to improving an inmate's mental health, replace major mechanical systems serving the original facility to improve climate control and air quality. This is one thing we learned during the pandemic, that our air quality is not as robust as it should be, especially during the pandemic. Additional inmate classroom and programming space, additional office space for staff, a larger public visitation area that will meet the needs of the public and professional visitors, additional security measures for staff and inmates. Renovation and expansion will meet the identified goals. Create a space conducive to inmate rehabilitation and reduces recidivism. The community is doing what they can to keep inmates from coming in here. We need to increase our ability to reduce recidivism for those that do wind up here. Part of that will be using trauma-informed design, such as sound-deadening materials, stress-reducing colors, natural sunlight, throughout the renovation and the expansion. Add classrooms and programming space. In the original structure, there was never a classroom space that was designed. All classrooms in the original structure we have created over the years. Integrate technology into the classrooms and housing areas. Replace existing HVAC units with effective and efficient units. Install air filtration system, effective against virus and bacteria. Again, this is a lesson we learned during the pandemic. Increase fresh air ventilation. Conservation of resources, use efficient water conserving toilets, shower heads, faucets, and the use of natural daylight. For the inmates, increase square footage per inmate in housing areas. Apply trauma-informed design in housing areas. Renovate inmate housing areas to create more privacy and security. Create an additional outdoor recreation area. Currently, we do not have a dedicated, true outdoor recreation area in this facility. Improve quality of social interaction with family, technology-based and in-person visitation. For our community and stakeholders, new customer service area for family and professional visitors to improve service quality, professional visitation area with integrated technology, and for our employees, incorporate improved safety and security measures, provide efficient workflow, apply trauma-informed design to staff work areas, create a work environment for staff's morale, mental, and physical well-being. What you're looking at on this slide is the schedule for the project planning, design, and construction. So these are all based on assumptions. We're assuming that the state approves the plans, that they approve our 25% reimbursement, that the city, Albemarle County, and Nelson County approve the project, approve the funding for the project. So making all those assumptions, and that we stay on schedule, June 2023, we would look for an architect and engineer to design the actual final building, final plans. The Virginia Department of Corrections value engineering on design would happen in November 2023 once we submit those permanent plans. We will complete the construction documents, secure the authorities' design approvals, make sure it's what they envisioned as well. That would be in March of 2024, May of 2024. We'd advertise for construction bids, find that contractor to build this building, negotiate a contract, and then construction would begin roughly August of 2024. And if all goes well, construction would end sometime around November of 2025. This is a cost overview here. Demolition renovation would cost about $21 million. New construction, about $17 million. Other costs, $7 million. Total project cost, $49 million. If we are approved for the reimbursement, 25% of that would be just over $12 million. The total cost localities is $36,766,000 as of today. What you'll see here is a share of debt for the city of Charlottesville. And again, this is assumed that the total cost to taxpayers is $36 million. You'll see here that in FY23, operational is what the city pays the jail in order for me to run it, does not increase. FY24, we do start to see some debt service associated with architectural and engineering fees. FY25 is when the majority of the city's debt payment will start to accrue, same as FY26, and then the full debt service would occur in FY27 at a cost of $1,112,309. And that's based on a 20-year bond at 4%. And it will be based on a percentage of the inmates that you have in the jail. So that cost will fluctuate. The fewer inmates you have, the fewer your debt service will be. The more inmates you have, the more debt service you will have. So that's based on current population of inmates for the city of Charlottesville. Now, key decision points. When do decisions have to be made in order to get this project through? So in December 2021, already said we've submitted our CBCP planning needs study to the Department of Corrections. The Jail Board Authority approved the resolution that we will formally seek 25% reimbursement from the state. Member jurisdictions, we presented to the member jurisdictions of renovation. May 2022, the resolutions and the current CBCP was submitted to the Board of Local and Regional Jails. June through August of 2022, once the Board of Local and Regional Jails approves the project so far, at that point, we'll begin making an application to the Treasury Board for bonds for reimbursement. That has not happened yet because the Board of Local and Regional Jails has not approved the 25% reimbursement yet. They are behind on their approvals. August through September of 2022, I will be going to each of the member jurisdictions, like I am doing tonight, to discuss the resolution from each of the member jurisdictions regarding 25% reimbursement. In September of 2022, the Department of Planning and Budget will meet to discuss our plans. And if approved and the General Assembly approves, the governor will approve for the funding of the inclusion in the budget bill for the 25% reimbursement. If that gets approved by the governor and the General Assembly in February 2023, I will be coming back to the member jurisdictions to ask them to formally approve the project and the funding for the project. Are there any questions at this time?
Councilors have any questions?
No, I appreciate this. I had the opportunity to tour the site, the jail, I guess, back in the winter, and was very impressed with the staff and the way it was run, but could certainly see the needs for this work, not only for the inmates to have a more humane place, but also for staff who spend most of their days there. So, yeah, thank you for the update. I guess we get these emails sometimes that I'm wondering what the sort of origin of them are, but you've stated, and it's my recollection from our conversations, that there are no new beds, there's no net add new beds. For some reason, we're getting emails saying that they're talking about adding 40 new mental health spaces there, and people are talking about Region 10 needing to be. Can you help? Any sense of why we're getting these emails?
Sure. When I talk about the renovation and expansion, the expansion part, we are adding more square footage, but no new beds. So when we tear down the portion of the building where the expansion will go, there are approximately 40 beds in that area. So those 40 beds will be demolished, and we'll re-add those same 40 beds right back into the expansion on the second floor.
Okay.
So I certainly understand the community's confusion, because it does seem like we're adding 40 beds. What we're adding is, the adding part is the designation of those beds. And those are, it's flex space, which is new to design, in correctional. It's probably been around for 20 years. Back in the 70s, when they built a cell block, it could not be adjusted. It could not be changed. I mean, it was a solid piece of concrete with bars, and that was it. This space, the second floor we're talking about with the 40 beds, not 40 additional beds, but 40 beds designated for mental health, it's flex space, which means if we only have 5 people here with mental health needs, the other 35 beds can be used for general population inmates. If for some reason we have 35 people here with mental health needs, the other 5 beds can be used for general population. So I know we're getting a loss. There's a lot of attention focused on the 40 beds being designated for mental health. They're designed, trauma-informed design, and in such a way that if we need to use those beds from individuals' mental illness, they won't deteriorate. It'll actually help improve, or at least keep them from deteriorating, their mental health. But if the community somehow, some way is able to divert those individuals from the jail, which by all means I absolutely support, as long as it can be safely and effectively done so, I am all for that. But if they wind up in our facility, we will be able to take care of them. But again, let's say that they are all diverted and another person with a mental illness never walks back into this jail. Those 40 beds will be used for general housing individuals. Or a small portion could be for segregation. Individuals that cannot be in general population for one reason or another, they can be housed there. So again, it's flex space.
Understood. Yeah, that's very helpful. And I think that explains the confusion that some may have. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just in general of that flex space, if there's not a need for those beds, can a flex space be used, I think you had mentioned, for more educational space or is it this flex space is strictly for housing inmates?
Good question. Yes. Now it is flex space, but that means in the designation of who can be housed there. But it is only for housing purposes.
Right.
The first floor of the renovation will house all of the new classrooms and office space for staff.
Thank you. So Brian asked my question about, what we're getting a lot of emails on the last couple of days, in particular today. And so I wasn't completely clear on it, but I can say that I know that you give tours not only certainly to elected officials, but to anyone in the community. And I encourage them, if you're still open to doing that, for them to take you up on your opportunities so you can see the type of changes that you are trying to make with the inmates, and so that their time there could be, it's really closed in, you're right, not a lot of good, clean air circulation and things there. So thank you again for the clarification.
Absolutely. And if I can plug, yes, sir, we are still doing tours. I'll do them whatever meets the community schedule. Happy to do so anytime.
One idea that has come forward from some community members is the idea that as this is being designed, it is intentionally designed to be able, that hopefully as our inmate population goes down, to be able to be utilized for something else. Have we been able to, is that too late to consider that? Or is it something that maybe we could be looking at to, I guess, community flex space almost, like look at it in a way that if our numbers continually to decrease, what could we utilize this space for the community benefit?
Well, that's a good question. I think I've seen some emails on that too from the public. I would hope that someday that this place, that we no longer need a jail in this community. And, by all means, I work myself out of a job. That'd be the best day of my life. However, I don't think that will happen. So there will always be individuals housed in this facility as long as that there's no new jail built. So the fact that there will always be people housed in this facility, I don't think it can be repurposed to suit the community's other needs. In addition, the state would not pay, 25% reimbursement if we designed a facility with the intent of using it for another purpose in the future. They wouldn't pay for any of those design changes, such as perhaps a homeless shelter, something to that regard. The state most likely would not pay for something like that if we designed it with that intent and purpose. So most likely not. Not to mention the architectural design that would have to be made in order to use for a future project would most likely not meet the needs of the jail's current needs. So I don't think it's possible to do both. Now, if that day comes and we no longer need this facility, fantastic. Someone could come in and demolish, parts of it, renovate parts of it to meet their needs, but we couldn't design that for them. I'm aware of some other communities who have done that and went in and taken over old jails or old prisons, but there's a lot of work and renovation that goes into making those new usable spaces.
I was just thinking maybe as we are designing this, while it's primarily going to be designed as a jail, if there could be some thought that might be able to, that in 20 years, maybe this potentially, if this little bit of a change to the design here might make it easier.
Gotcha. And that's another thing too, in 20 years from now, what would the public want this to be? And can we anticipate that need into a design that would make it easier to meet that need? There's just so many unknown variables. And again, with funding, I don't think, I know the state wouldn't, authorize funding for that purpose, I'm sure, but it's not a bad idea.
Mr. Kumar, will you be with us at the regular city council meeting for that agenda item?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. At that, I'll be discussing the resolution. At that time.
In the interest of time, I'll just save my questions for then. We're 1 minute away from our closed session where we have already scheduled interviews, so.
Okay. I've got no questions at this time, so anybody else?
I think I need to read a motion here.
Okay, thank you, Colonel Coomer.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
So is there a motion for closed session?
Yes. Pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Virginia Code, I hereby move that the City Council close this open meeting and convene within a closed meeting as authorized by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion and consideration of appointments by council to various boards and commissions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We will now go into closed session, and we will come back to a different link for the open meeting. And I guess my question is whether Councilor McGill is going to be able to join us. Does she have a link specially for that? Okay. All right, so we're adjourned, or we're in recess at the moment. We'll be back at 6:30.